It's taken more than 3 decades, but the long-awaited public inquiry into the biggest treatment disaster in the history of the British NHS is underway. In the 70s and 80s, 5,000 people were infected with HIV and hepatitis C from contaminated blood. The first witness to give evidence was Derek Martindale. He and his brother were both diagnosed with haemophilia at a young age, and both were infected with HIV. Mr. Martindale was told he had just a year to live, and his brother died of AIDS at the age of just 22. Well, this process is designed to provide some answers to families like his and many others, as our health correspondent Paul Kelso reports.
Derek Martindale was in his 20s when he was infected with HIV and hepatitis C during treatment for haemophilia. 35 years later, supported by wife Margaret and son John Paul, he became the first witness at a public inquiry intended to discover how it happened.
I was told I had about a year to live. I was told not to tell anybody, including my family and my parents.
Derek is one of around 5,000 people infected by contaminated blood products given by the NHS in the 1970s and 80s. He is now clear of hepatitis and manages his HIV, but told the inquiry his brother Richard was not so fortunate. He was among almost 3,000 people who died as a result of contamination.
They probably do have things to say they wanted to say, but they can't. So we who are left staying, we have a responsibility to make sure that the truth comes out in this.
Perry Evans was infected with hepatitis C and HIV and developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
There is a huge impact on family because they carry you, and but the focus is always on the patient, the person who's suffering. But I know that I won't be here without friends and family.
The thousands of victims and their families have waited decades for this inquiry, and each has a story of bereavement, of lives lived with illness, and of terrible loss. Lee Turton was 4 when he contracted HIV from contaminated blood products. He was just 10 when he died. His parents, Denise and Colin, were forced to move his school and home because of the stigma surrounding AIDS.
We've found it very hard to access his medical records. We're still having trouble with the GP records. A lot of what we wanted to see is missing from the records, his hospital records. So we still don't know fully what went on. How long do we have to keep doing this before we can actually get to the truth of what actually happened?
The inquiry will take evidence here in London and then across the UK in the next 5 months in Leeds, Belfast, Cardiff and Edinburgh, as it gathers the human stories at the heart of what may be the largest ever public inquiry in this country. More than 1,200 witness statements have been collected, and the team has examined more than 2.5 million pages of NHS documents, and there are more than 5 million more yet to be read.
The documents may reveal more stories like Derek's, and he hopes it will get to the bottom of the alleged attempted cover-up of the scale of this scandal.
I'd like to know how these people sleep at night. But I'm not here for revenge.
No.
I'm just here to get the truth out.
The inquiry is expected to last up to 2 years, but for the infected, the affected and those left behind, every day is a valuable step. Paul Kelso, Sky News.